you're up. There. Not too tight, I hope. The collar, I mean. In the meantime, your next stop will be Magister William. All passengers have to be registered, and you'll find him on the other side of this deck, in the officers' quarters.
Yes, this is a rare kind of magic.
Why, for my peace of mind, of course. Why don't you try casting one of those source spells of yours? See what happens.
Currents of magic surge inside you, boiling, bursting, then breaking, only to fade back into your soul like rain into the earth.
You better stop before you hurt yourself. All will, but no result. There you have it, see? The collar's function. It neuters you, of sorts. Makes you unable to cast for your own peace of mind, of course. Yours and the whole world's. Dungeon? You have the gall to call my laboratory a dungeon? Oh, I'd be quite annoyed with you, if you didn't look so honestly perplexed.
Index fingers pressed to her lips, she pauses a moment to give you...
My word, you do seem a bit befuddled, don't you? Perhaps I was a bit too generous with that sedative. Oh well, I'm sure you'll soon gather your wits. Most likely. Eventually. In the meantime, all you need to know is that we're en route to Fort Joy. A new life awaits. And if you're a particularly good boy, perhaps a cure as well. An end to Source. For good.
Good gods. There's been a murder here.
Did the murderer take him into this room? Or was he already here?
A young magister stands pale and silent. Her knuckles whiten around her weapon as you pass. Behind the magister, a bloodied mass lies in a heap, gore and limbs.
There's been a murder. A sorcerer was killed by one of your own. Lucky you were busy getting your collar fitted at the time. Waters is investigating. She'll figure out who did it. Always does.
No lesions.
You surprised? You're one of them. You know what sorcerers are capable of? Whoever did this found a way around their collar. Small ones this time, thank the gods. We'll find out who did it, one way or another.
Ugly sight, isn't it? Burns me up this happened under our protection. We're extremely lucky no Voidwalker followed the source that did this. Finn didn't see it like that. He was desperate for us to help him. Two things scared the living daylights out of him. We'll find out who did this.
She looks up at you with a mirthless...
I was on duty in your room when the murder happened. You were asleep the whole time. You're one of the only indisputably innocent people on the ship. Unless you can commit murder in your sleep, of course. Not with that collar on, you aren't. Listen, I could use someone to keep their ears open among the passengers. Sometimes they clam up in front of a uniform. Bring me a good lead, and I'll throw in a shiny gold coin for you. How about that? Think about it. It's one of you who got killed, not one of us. We want to find who did it and bring them to justice. Who's your real enemy here? You let me know if you hear anything. Whoever did this is dead. Yes, this is a rare kind of magic. I'll need to write to headquarters right away. No lesions, no trauma. He was bled by magic. Did the murderer take him into this room? Or was he already here?
Ah, you're up. Yes. Looks like that collar fits you snug there. Not in the meantime, you'll find him on the other side of this deck, in the office. Why, for my peace of mind, of course.
Currents of...
You better... There you have. For your own peace of mind, of course. Yours and the whole world's. Are you seriously... This is... This is a ship.
Index fingers pressed to her lips.
My word. Oh well, I knew...
Good gods. There's been a murder.
A young magister stands
No lesions, no trauma.
behind the magister. A bloodied mass lies in...
There's been a murder. Waters is investigating. She'll figure out who did it. It's a small ship. His name was Finn. Oddball. Looked to me like he saw... We'll find out who did it.
Ugly sight, isn't it? Burns me up this happened under our protection. We're extremely lucky no void walk. Finn didn't see. We'll find out who did this.
She looks up at you with a mirthless smile.
I was on duty in your room when the murder. You're one of the only indisputably innocent people on the ship. Unless you can commit murder in your sleep, I thought as much. Listen, I could use some... Bring me a good lead, and I'll throw in a shiny gold coin for you. Think about it. Who's your real... You let me know if... No lesions, no trauma. He was bled by magic.
The hatch is blocked. I'll need to find another way.
Why won't you sing? A no doesn't become a yes over time, you know. you can.
I forgot how to sing. I did.
You look like my daddy. His name is Frida. He's waiting for me at home.
I'm here because I'm magic. Are you here because you're weird? Do you know Losa? She's a really good singer. I'm better though. Listen. La 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 la.
Ah, there you are. Husband. Would you please tell this very charming gaggle of not-at-all brat-like babes that I am by no accounts this Losa woman, nor do I sing, in fact. I'm deathly allergical. Why, I never. I left my good pals at home, or I'd be clutching them with all my daintiest, most ladylike might. Say as you will, husband. Madame Josephine Gribbles de Peeb won't be treated so.
The children break out into giggles.
What? What's so funny?
Her pinched face cracks into a great grin, and she shoos the children away from her with a laugh.
Yeah, okay, you found me out. Go on and git, and maybe I'll sing you something when I'm good and ready.
She turns to you, dark-eyed and dirty-haired, and smiles flatly.
Gotta keep ourselves entertained, haven't we? Guess you aren't a creative type, are you, Chief? I say they're one and the same. Nope. Trying not to find anything out either. Ignorance is bliss. The utterer, the better.
Kid, you been down by the room up the hall?
No.
Suddenly, her eyes cloud to an unnatural black. Greyish veins run down her face, and her mouth tightens into a cruel sneer. As quickly as they came, the clouds clear. She smiles as though no change came over her.
Good luck, Chief.
It was one of them. I know it.
You! Sorcerer! Blood? No! Go! Uff.
They don't care about us. We're like cattle to them.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep carrying on.
One of us will kill our own. They're picking us off one by one.
Can we just skip to the part where I reassure you and you shut up?
You think me mad?
Go! Mad? Move! Woof! 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 Surely.
What are you
Go!
trying to hear?
Move! Woof! Woof! I'll tell you if you can keep it
Nay.
quiet long enough for me to listen.
The Divine Order wants to know. Well, you aren't here on my list. Scrammy, we're trying to catch a killer here.
Your kind always hung closest to our divine, like wolves around a campfire.
Well, you've got this wolf on a leash now.
Well, well. What have we here? A fresh face in this stale hell. Let's size you up, shall we? See if you'll do.
The lizard looks you up and down, like a farmer would a fetching horse. All of a sudden, he grips you firmly by the chin, with the intent of inspecting your teeth.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep carrying on.
One of us will kill our own.
There's some discoloration, as well as a rather disconcerting lack of tongue and gums, but I've seen worse. After all, one can't expect to find prime merchandise on a squalid little ship like... Now then, to business. You will answer me 3 questions. The first one is this.
What are you trying to hear anyway?
Can you cook?
I'll tell you if you can keep it quiet long enough for me to listen.
And of course, a cook who can't taste is about as useful as a dog in a chess game.
Never thought you...
On to the second question. Can you knit, weave? In short, tailor?
I always knew you'd turn out rotten, Ben Nest. Your kind always hung closest to our divine, like wolves around a campfire.
Well, you've got this wolf on a leash now.
Yes, I can tell from your vagabond chic, a bag is as good as a shirt kind of style. I shouldn't be getting on then to my final query. Have you the ability to administer the upkeep of one's personal appearance? The delicate art of cosmetics is what I'm after.
It was one of them. I know it.
You put a knuckle in it. I'm trying to concentrate.
They don't care about us. We're like cattle to them.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep
Just as I thought. That explains what's besieging my nostrils.
picking us off one by one.
So, 3 questions asked, 3 questions answered. Let's evaluate, shall we? As per your own testimony, you have the taste buds of a dung beetle, the fashion sense of a monkey in a clown suit, and your personal hygiene reminds one of a carcass rotting in the sun.
I'll tell you if you can keep it quiet long
That
enough.
won't do at all, see? I'm sad to say I must deny you the opportunity to be my slave. Ever so sorry.
Never thought you'd end up a prison guard, Vic.
That right. I always knew you'd turn out rotten, Ben Nest. Your kind always hung closest to our divine, like wolves around a campfire.
Well, you've got this wolf on a leash.
I know, but you just don't have what it takes. A good still. Hone your skills, and one day you may just qualify for a position in a lesser household than mine. You keep dreaming, you hear?
I spent my life singing for my slaves to bring me my supper. Finer fare than boiled roots and rotten tubers, too. Meanwhile, the Magisters feast on honeyed meat behind this very wall.
Well, you've got this wolf on a leash now.
Soon as the Inquisitor gets here, we'll hand you right over the side of the ship with it.
It was one of
Ask
them.
what you might.
I know it.
I've nothing to hide.
Would you put a knuckle in it? I'm
Seems
trying
to
to
me
concentrate.
you should be a little more afraid.
They don't care about
There's
us.
a killer about,
We're like
after
cattle
all.
to them.
I'll give you that knuckle
Till
if you keep
overboiling a
carrying
bit
on.
of cabbage becomes a crime,
One
I
of
shall
us
hold
will
my
kill our
head
own. They're
steady.
picking us off one by one.
Can we just skip to the part where I reassure you and you shut up?
You think me mad?
Mad? No. Insufferable.
A broad dwarf sits totally upright on the bench, eyes closed, palms face up on his knees. His beard is a cascade of meticulous plaits, each one braided through with golden medallions. He raises an eyebrow as you approach, but doesn't open his eyes.
Listen up, boy. You hear that?
Turnips and water are all I was given.
Unacceptable. I've never dined on anything less than a dozen-course dinner, and I don't intend to do away with the custom.
His eyes snap open. He looks at you and frowns.
That has the Magisters more concerned than your...
Murder? Ah, that's what they were going on and on about. I wouldn't know anything about it. I'd kill a man. He knows who done it. His daddy knows who done it. And the mayor knows who done it too.
His eyes flutter shut, and he assumes his...
Whether they catch me is another matter. But I ain't one to hide my accomplishments.
He opens both eyes and turns his head toward you, looking you up and down. He smiles and closes his eyes once more.
You look like a boy to me. Listen if you're interested, or get gone if you aren't. The ship, of course.
A wave of sound washes over you. The unintelligible chatter of your shipmates, the groaning of wood from floor to ceiling, the boom, crash and crackle of waves around you, complaints from the sea itself.
And?
Don't you get saucy with me when you clearly don't know the first thing about sauce.
Never thought you'd end up a prison guard, Vic.
The fellow cocks his ear, listening.
That isn't anger, it's...
He cocks his ear to the other side, then smiles.
Anticipation. She senses something. I'd hold on to my breeches if I were you, mate. That's all you hear, though. Listen close.
We'll hand you right over the side of this ship with it.
There now, just like that. Aha!
His eyes snap open as his countenance breaks into an expression of joy. One great paw claps you on the back. The other catches you before you...
There. You heard it, didn't you? I knew it. I knew it. Aye, this is good news, boy. Good news.
You are chill, aren't you? I ain't saying...
No, you beautiful idiot. That wasn't any rat. It was the wheel. Squeaks whenever the helmsman jerks it clockwise, which means we're heading east. Burn my beard. That means if we've been traveling for, yes, only 10.34 nautical miles to Fort Joy.
This slop was filled. I've seen more appetizing things coming out of plague-stricken pigs.
There's nothing else I can make, Your Majesty. Turnips and water are all I was given.
Unacceptable. I've never dined on anything less than a dozen courses.
Captain, actually. And that figure tells me we're getting close to the Joy. Close to what lies beyond it, too.
The dwarf leans back from the table and strokes his beard, gold medallions jingling merrily. His eyes roll over to you.
That'll be all. Thank you kindly, boy.
He continues stroking his beard, a beatific smile on his lips, and doesn't acknowledge you anymore.
I always knew you'd turn out rotten, Ben Nest. Your kind always hung closest to our divine.
You one of them? A divine order loyal? They killed a sorcerer, you know. They'll hide the evidence well enough, but make no mistake.
As soon as the Inquisitor gets here, we'll hand you right over the side of this ship with it.
It was one of them. I know it.
Would you put a knuckle in it? I'm trying.
I'm busy watching for clues, sorcerer. Go take your sub-story somewhere else.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep carrying on.
One of us will kill our own. They're picking us off.
A scruffy man lounges against the wall with scarred arms folded. A sly smile playing on his face, he stares across at the Magister guarding him. Noticing you, he straightens and beckons for...
Watch your back, new fish.
There's a murderer on board, and I'd bet 3 months' pay it's the...
Rolling his eyes at the Magister's warning, the man named Ifan beckons again. He leans in and adjusts your collar with a sharp tug, balancing its weight so it no longer presses unpleasantly on your neck. He
pinches less that way, right?
Hocking a phlegmy gobbet in your general direction, the sullen Magister settles back to his task of glowering at Ifan. And now, you.
We used to know each other, more's the pity. I was his commander many, many, many moons ago. Isn't that right, Vic?
Standing far back from Ifan, the tight-faced Magister draws one finger across his throat in an elaborate fashion, but says nothing. Ifan grins, flashing pointed white teeth.
Same as he was at 14 years old. Only difference is somebody gave him a bigger sword and now he's Johnny Big Pants.
There's nothing else I can make, Your Majesty. Turnips and water are all I was given.
Long story. Maybe I'll tell you about it in the Joy. Away from interested parties. No. The dead man, Finn, is it? I'd no business with him. And I wouldn't put a man down without good reason.
He glances over at Magister Victor, who
damn shame sheer annoyance isn't reason enough. The Joy, I've heard a lot. Nothing good. No surprise there, since Bishop Alexander runs the show. Wonder if we'll get to meet the ringmaster himself.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep carrying on. One of us will kill our own. They're picking us off one by one. Can we just skip to the part where I reassure you and you shut up?
Not interested in the son of the Divine himself? I don't blame you one bit. But Vic here will blow a blood vessel if he hears you talking like that.
What are you conspiring about over there? You! What's your name?
Oh, don't mind him. Vic's just got a bee in his bonnet. And that bee is me.
Name?
Magister Victor looks at you suspiciously, then scrawls something illegible down in a tiny notebook. He scowls at you as he stows the notebook back in his voluminous robes.
Away with you, at once.
Ifan performs an elaborate pantomime of keeping quiet, one finger in front of his lips as he leans back against the wall.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep carrying on. One of us will kill our own. They're picking us off one by one. Can we just skip to the part where I reassure you and you shut up? You think me mad? Mad?
An elf sits tucked away in a dark spot, lazily rolling dice onto the surface of a barrel. They sound like the dry cackling of an old witch.
Snake eyes.
She chuckles.
I bet that's just what they'll look like.
She shakes her head.
Game for one, I'm afraid. Rolling die, deciding fates. Don't worry, honey. It isn't yours.
She looks you up and down with the merest hint of a coy smile on her lips.
Never say never, though.
She smiles contemptuously.
Just a kitten in a corner, aren't...
It was one of them. I know it.
Would you put a knuckle in it? I'm trying to concentrate.
They don't care about us. We're like cattle to them.
I'll give you that knuckle if you keep carrying on.
One of us wouldn't kill our own. They're picking us off one by one.
Can we just skip to the part where I reassure you and you shut up?
The elf is reading a volume of Cranley Hubert's famous encyclopedia. He looks up, his big round eyes scanning your body, absorbing every detail. He reaches out and examines your bandages, rubbing them between his fingers.
Fascinating.
He sits back and returns to his book, flicking quickly from page to page, completely oblivious to your presence.
It is simultaneously too detailed and insufficient. I know the beginning of this tale and the end, but I am rather missing the middle. Tell me, what do you know of our world's history? Oh, please. I have no interest in that. Your books are too full of it already. No, I want to know about the Celestial. I want to know about your gods. This text tells me that they created all creatures, but nothing of what came before.
There has been a murder.
Where did these gods come from? Who are their people? Where are the others of their kind?
Don't you get saucy with me when you clearly don't know the first thing about swords.
It was one of them. I know it.
Put a knock on it. I'm trying to concentrate.
They don't care about us.
The elf's face freezes for just a second before he waves his hand dismissively.
Oh, it's just one of my idle curiosities. We mortals do... Now, please, run along. I have a world to decipher.
No amount of pestering will get the elf to take his eyes off his book or respond to your questions.
Insufferable, surely.
Here to register, sir. Good, good. Magister Williams is just about done with the last passenger. You faring okay so far?
He tugs the collar of his uniform and chuckles.
Sorry you're upset, sir, but we all wear what we wear for a reason. You head on in now. Williams will get you sorted fast.
How dare you classify this slop as food? I've seen more appetizing things coming out of plague-stricken pigs.
Keep those bolts trained on her. And if she tries
There's
to run,
nothing else
shoot
I
to
can make,
kill.
Your Majesty. Turnips and water
You seem
are all
on
I
edge,
was
officer.
given.
What on earth is the matter?
Unacceptable. I've never dined on anything less than a dozen-course dinner, and I don't intend to do away with the custom.
Well, there has been a murder, Your Majesty. Maybe that has the Magisters more concerned than your appetite.
Don't you get saucy with me when you clearly don't know the first thing about sauce.
Kid, you been down by the room up the hall?
No,
You sure about that?
no,
What's your name?
no.
Gods, didn't your mother teach you any manners?
She got eaten by a void one.
Yes, this is a rare kind of magic. I'll need to write to headquarters right away.
I'm trying to concentrate.
are not suited for this. It's sea cow, not sea sheep. Haven't got any shears, have you? People these days.
Mad? Insufferable, surely.
What are you trying to hear anyway?
I'll tell you if you can keep it quiet long enough for me to listen.
Standing at the center of the room, you spot a sorcerer haughtily eyeing a pair of nervous-looking magisters. They keep their crossbow trained upon her as she's being interrogated by an officer.
So you admit it then? You murdered that poor fella?
Yes, I did. But of course, that was only the beginning.
She turns her head and looks you straight in the eye.
There are others whose lives must end.
Good God! The woman's... You there, sorcerer! Go and fetch Magister Siwan. We need to do more than collar this maniac. We need to shackle her, hands and feet.
It means your journey draws to a close. Do stick around for its finale, though, because...
She reaches for her collar and simply removes it.
I'm just about to create a scene.
Subdue her, men, quickly! If she casts Source, the Voidwoken will come. They'll end us all.
She smiles with wicked satisfaction.
Precisely.
What's happened?
The dwarf lies in a heap on the floor, his great beard twisted and tangled around him. He is stock still. You can't see if he's living or dead.
No, not the final dark. Not yet.
Her hand lies limp in yours. She's too weak to stand.
The dice roll darkly. They're rolling for me.
Ifan lies motionless, curled on the ground like an animal. Under his shaggy hair, you can see green eyes fluttering as if in a nightmare. A low whine escapes his lips. His eyes flicker open, but he doesn't register your presence at all.
Lucien. Lucien.
Ifan cries out. Then his eyes fall closed again. No matter how much you The young woman lies in a heap on the floor. She's breathing normally, but her eyes are wide open, like though she doesn't stir. The Magister lies on the floor, unconscious and bleeding from a dire-looking wound.
Playing dead, are you? Probably a good idea.
The Magister lies on the floor, unconscious and bleeding from a dire-looking wound.
The hatch is blocked. I'll need to find another way.
What happened? Must have been the turnips. You dare strike a royal? Ooh.
The lizard's eyes close as he slips into unconsciousness. The dwarf lies in a heap on the floor. You hear a faint thud, thud, thud. The hound paws desperately at its snout. It winces as it draws blood from its wet black nose and continues scratching. The dog notices you for the first time and snarls, the hairs on its back prickling as it lowers itself into a lunge.
You sorcerer!
It sneezes suddenly and paws at its nose once.
Can't smell. Can't breathe. Too much sauce. Too much. Too much.
Please, make it stop. Oh.
Sorcerer!
The dog whines and continues pawing at its nose.
Long before this thing snaps into splinters. Damn, that doesn't bode well. Onwards and upwards. Bishop Alexander. Bishop Alexander. If Lucian were alive, what would he think?
Thank the gods! But a fine grace, what was...
He eyes the collar circling your neck and reaches a hand towards his blade.
Another sorcerer!
The Magister's companion doesn't blink, frozen in place at the sight of you.
Even if I knew how to rip that thing off, I wouldn't. Some crazy banshee comes screaming through, and now we got void bugs swarming up top.
He whispers loudly to the other Magister.
Don't just cower there, Rix. Take out your blade.
Rix grabs his sword, which shakes in the rhythm of his trembling hand. The Magisters look to each other, then back to you, and unsheath their...
Your lies end here.
Bishop Alexander, if Lucian were alive, what would he think of his son's divine order?
The hound paws desperately at its snout. It winces as it draws blood from its wet. The dog notices you for the first time and snarls. It sneezes suddenly.
Can't smell. Please, make it stop. Oh. Too much. Too much. Can't smell.
The dog whines.
Damn, that doesn't bode well. Onwards and upwards.
Thank the gods! By divine grace, what was...
He eyes the collar circling your neck.
Another...
The Magister's companion doesn't blink, frozen in place at the sun.
Like you don't know? Mutiny! Did that witch fix your collar too?
He whispers loudly to the other Magister.
Don't just cower there!
Rix grabs his sword, which shakes in the rhythm of his trembling hand. Rix looks to his companion, who then looks to you. They drop their hands.
Go then! Get out of here! Just leave me be. Get on with you.
And you thought Rivellon was flat.
Before this thing snaps into splinters. Something's pounding on the hull!
And are suddenly face to face with an undead. His skull is bizarrely angular, and a glorious jewel sits in the middle of his forehead. The skeleton is quickly leafing through a volume of Cranley Hubert's famous encyclopedia, muttering to...
No.
What damn fools record knowledge on a pulped tree? It catches fire, it turns into must when wet, it cannot even resist acid.
The skeleton looks up and notices you.
Oh, it's you. Shouldn't you be running and screaming or some such?
The skeleton groans and looks back to his book.
Yes, indeed. It's the look of someone that wants to... Now, if you're really quite finished, I believe you have lifeboats to flee to. Please, I was no more an elf than you are those rags you're wearing. I had a mask, rather ingeniously designed, which allowed me to take that primitive form. A mask that was stolen by that damned witch after her little scene. Still, she'll drown with the rest of these fools, and I will simply pluck my mask from her cold, dead hands. Indeed. Just as sensible as getting off a sinking ship and leaving a fellow to his business. I would say good day, but it seems quite likely that you're about to die a rather terrible death, so...
The skeleton shrugs casually and returns. On the door was painted recently, judging from its pungent scent. You don't recognize the symbol, but it's clear. You press your palm against the door to open it. Your fingers clack against the wood, and you suddenly feel grey. The touch leaves you numb, dull.